Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the 20somethings show. Tonight we are joined by Ryan, uh, Maddie, Aiden Farrell, Griffin, and I'm Aiden I. We have three good topics for you guys today: designer babies, the advancement of AI, and cancel culture. Today, to start off, we have a video for designer babies.
If parents can one day pay scientists to edit their baby's DNA, making them stronger or smarter, CRISPR could make the world even more unequal and prejudiced. In 2018, Chinese researcher He Jiankui claimed he'd used CRISPR to make HIV-resistant children. Whether or not he succeeded, his work violated China's National Health Commission rules, and he was sentenced to 3 years in prison. Using CRISPR on babies is widely illegal, but there are some cases where using CRISPR on humans may be worth the risk. In 2020, American researchers began the first clinical trials injecting CRISPR directly into humans, aiming to repair a genetic mutation that causes blindness. Many researchers hope CRISPR-based therapies could eventually cure hereditary diseases. They've already seen promising results in various animal studies. Though given the risks of editing the human genome, we're still a ways off from widespread use of CRISPR in medicine.
So, for those who don't know, CRISPR stands for Clustered Regularly Interspace Short Palindromic Repeats, which is essentially just bits of genetic code with specific formats. It's a palindrome, so it repeats forward and backwards, and it's used to highlight a certain gene and remove it. But we do have a long ways to go before we can implement this. One of the main issues is it doesn't just affect the one gene, it affects other genes. But eventually, science will get to the point where we can affect multiple genes and almost customize. So that's where the impact of designer babies comes in. So it's more it's weighing your options of, is it worth curing a hereditary disease when it can also lead to influencing someone's child?
I mean, I guess it's good in the aspects of like it can get rid of some diseases like genetic diseases like cancer, and I think the video said blindness. So those are all like benefits to getting this, but also like there's a level of unethical, like researchers said that, or critics said that it's similar to abortion in some ways, just the fact of it's changing the embryo before the baby's even born. It's like it's not able to consent to these changes it's being made.
Yeah, I mean, another big roadblock, I guess you could say, is the legislation, obviously, because countries such as the UK and China, which were actually pretty influential to developing the technology, have it completely illegal for using it in a pregnancy. What's interesting is the US actually, it is still legal in the US to use it in a pregnancy, but it's a little more vague where if there is a medical use, it can still be used. So I think before we start seeing designer babies and actual like people designing their babies, customizing their babies, we're going to see a lot more in the medical fields and in that field, that circle.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Like, it's definitely a positive thing in the medical field because you can save a lot of people from genetic diseases in the future and stuff. Where people are getting into the whole unethical thing is in the future. The science fiction now is where you can change their hair color, their eye color, things about them. It becomes almost cosmetic, and that's where the ethical questions come in. Is this okay to do? Is this something that you should be able to do to your baby?
Well, I do think that that's the ethical question could come in earlier, as we saw in the video. In China, he was trying to help babies prevent HIV, but they thought that was crossing the line. So it's a matter of where do we think the line has to be drawn. I'm not fully sure on that, Robert. I do think to an extent, like what we saw in the video, with blindness, but I do know that it's mostly being tested on animals, and that's where they're finding the errors of the fact that it doesn't affect just the one gene that's being highlighted, but other genes as well.
I believe there was a designer baby that like it was fixed in the lab, in 1989, and it was born in 1990. So the baby has grown into an adult by now, but is still surviving. But we don't know the long-term effects of it yet because the baby is still relatively young.
Okay, and then I think going on into our next topic, we're going to start with the advancement, or no, I'm sorry, cancel culture. And that's a big topic going on today with a lot of issues, starting with Harvey Weinstein, with his big case. And we're going to talk about the pros and the cons and what's going on with that. Does anyone have anything to start with?
Yeah, I can start. So, obviously, I think cancel culture in itself is not a bad thing, but it's something that could be corrupted because there are definitely many numerous cases. The majority of cases, I would say, probably are for the good. People like Harvey Weinstein, like Louis C.K., James Franco, they were like kind of the catalysts for the start of the Me Too movement and everything. And obviously what they did was wrong and they should be punished for it. But then you have examples in cancel culture such as Johnny Depp, who never got proved guilty of anything and then all started getting all like his roles taken away, and he was taken out of Fantastic Beasts and all of a sudden not offered any movie roles based off of no jury or anything.
Yeah,
Right.
you mentioned. Well, sorry,
You can go.
All right. No, so you just mentioned Louis C.K. and what I found really interesting when I was doing some research, I had thought Louis C.K. was gone. I thought he was canceled. But doing some research, he's actually like doing pretty well right now. He played Madison Square Garden recently, and he won the Grammy for the best comedy album at the last Grammys.
Really?
Yeah, which I had no idea about that. So it's kind of interesting to see now some of the long-term effects of cancel culture as we're getting away from the initial canceling and seeing whether it's actually sticking or not.
Well, speaking of the long-term effects of it, Ellen Hispel, who's the co-founder of GIST, as well as Barack Obama, commented on how exactly cancel culture could affect someone's career or even a company's career long-term in this video.
Recently, Barack Obama condemned the social media trend.
There is this sense sometimes of the way of me making change is to be as judgmental as possible about other people. And that's enough. Like if I tweet or hashtag about how you didn't do something right, that's not activism. That's not bringing about change.
Who is actually making the change are the outlets who are canceling shows or firing personalities. Social media is forcing the hand of these companies. What's going to be interesting is what if a company just said no and said, no, we're still sticking with it despite the cancel culture.
So cancel culture theoretically is supposed to be there to hold people accountable, but it can be used to weaponize like fans against each other and just overall blow things up to proportions that were never issues in the first place in some cases. So what do you guys think of the use of it? Does it have a purpose here at all, or is it just exaggerated to a point where...
Yeah, that's interesting. Like what you said and like the video about how it does just seem like performative activism, where it's like, okay, this person did something bad, now they're canceled, but there's like really no like direct definition of it. Like, yeah, Harvey Weinstein got like blacklisted from Hollywood, as did Johnny Depp, but now he's like making a reappearance. And even Brendan Fraser, which is like reappearing in the media now. But like there's companies like Chick-fil-A, like they got exposed for donating to anti-LGBT companies, where at this point, like people aren't stopping going to them. They're just making jokes like, haha, well, this is the best homophobia I've ever tasted. So really, like, what's the line of cancel culture and how serious people are taking it?
Yeah, and even with something like the internet, it's allowing people who are canceled to just continue working now to a smaller audience. people like DaBaby, Gina Carano, J.K. Rowling, they were all canceled, and their audiences were kind of erased, but they just rebuilt on a new sect of the internet with a new sect of people. Granted, smaller. Gina Carano went from Disney to the Daily Wire. Not exactly a step up, but it's just interesting to see that they're still finding success and not really seeing any real consequence, in the grander scheme of things.
Right, and J.K. Rowling is still thriving on Twitter with all of
Yeah.
her transphobic followers.
That's what I mean. I feel like there's that flip side to cancel culture that's like, nah, you can't. I hate cancel culture. And it kind of goes out of their way to not promote the people who are canceled, but I feel like to some extent being canceled gains you a different sort of following in an aspect, if that makes sense.
Oh, totally.
Yeah, I get that. It almost makes the person notorious,
Yeah.
Limelight on them for a little bit, like the Andrew Tate guy recently. He just got banned off of the internet, but he became one of the biggest faces on the internet for a few months. Like, you'd be swiping on your phone and you couldn't escape him. He was everywhere. And now they've tried to get rid of him, but he has like his own ways of getting through the internet, having his own website with a paywall. So he's still able to make money and say what he wants. Anyone else have anything to say? No, should we move on to the next topic? Okay, moving on to our next topic, we have the advancement of AI.
I found a video earlier. We're not able to pull it up, but a video that was just two AI having a conversation with each other, and they discuss human emotion. And it's really interesting to see how something that's programmed can have such a deep, intelligent conversation. It wasn't like super crazy or anything, but they ask each other how they are, and they have a real conversation. And one of them even tells a joke and tells the other one that they're really funny and that they should keep telling jokes. And it's just insane how they can have such an intelligent conversation.
Yeah, there was a AI created by Google who had a genuine fear of death after reading Les Miserables and did not want to be turned off. And the scientist, I didn't write down his name, but Ryan knows it. He got fired because he was like releasing all of this, saying like, "Oh my God, this is terrifying," and he was so traumatized by it, he got himself drunk every single day for a week straight.
Yeah, she's talking about the engineer Blake. I'm gonna butcher his last name. Lemeon, and he was fired because he chose to persistently violate clear employment and data security policies that include the need to safeguard products and information, according to Chris Pappas. But in fact, despite this initial like fear of Lambda and like what exactly it's capable of, it actually launched late August, close to a month today. And they launched it because they're at the point where they think the only way that the AI can improve is from external feedback. And Google to this day denies any sorts of this chatbot named Lambda being sentient.
Yeah, I mean, fear of AI is definitely something that was probably most influenced by movies like 2001: A Space Odyssey, Terminator, where you have that evil robot, that evil AI coming, taking over, or doing whatever. But what I found really interesting in doing some research was that a lot of scientists, their actual fear with AI is closer to what we're seeing with the Tesla automated driving tests that have been happening recently, where they just can't identify people, they don't stop at stops or whatever. And so I think what we're going to see in the future is that maybe the danger posed by AI isn't going to be robots roaming the street hunting down humans, but just a car plowing through a child waiting at the stop sign. You know what I mean? Like it's kind of scary to think about. I don't know.
Yeah, not to mention that all of the jobs, well, probably most of like the minimum wage jobs are going to be completely taken over by robots and like this AI system, because they can be programmed to do the same thing over and over. And I'm sure employers would much rather have these AI systems do the work that humans can do, because they can work 24/7. They don't need paid benefits like health insurance. They don't need pay raises, lunch breaks, bathroom breaks, performance reviews. Well, they should probably get like maintenance reviews, but like there's so many things that humans need that these robots don't, and they don't need to get paid every hour. So unemployment's going to be a big issue sometime in the future when these AI become so advanced.
Especially since like the point of AI is not only for it to learn on top of itself, but it's a source of something that's non-biased and isn't toxic in any sort of way. It's a completely neutral playing field that just learns and adapts as it continues.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. It's just it gets to the point where we have to wonder, like, at what point do we have to start considering AI human or as close to human as possible, and we have to start treating them like how we treat ourselves? You know, like, are we going to have to pay them every hour, or are they just going to be like free slave labor? It's all these big questions that we're going to have to answer, and I don't know the answers to that right now, but that's something that we're going to have to keep track of in the future. Anybody else have anything to say? Is that the show for tonight?
That's the show.
That's the show. That's a wrap. Thank you all for watching. We'll be back next week. This was 20 somethings TV.